Stuck at zero with your short-term rental? Watch Sarah go from overwhelmed host to marketing pro in 60 seconds. Meet Sarah, drowning in a sea of confusing marketing tactics. But everything changes when she discovers from zero to pro. She masters SEO, skyrocketing her visibility online. Social media becomes her secret weapon, turning scrollers into guests. Email marketing? Automated and personalized, working while she sleeps. With her own booking site, Sarah waves goodbye to hefty OTA fees. Sarah's not just growing, she's scaling, from one rental to an empire. Now Sarah's not just a host, she's a digital marketing pro with a thriving business. Ready for your zero to hero story? Get from zero to pro today and scale your rental empire.
What's going on, my beautiful people? To STR News and Digest, your go-to place for everything related to STR, travel, and the business of STR and travel. Today, I got a lot of information to cover, but I'm really going to be talking a lot about what's going on in the short-term rental market. I am going to give you some important travel news, a warning that TSA has issued, and you may not be aware of it, but it's very important, so stay tuned to that. I'm going to run down some of the stuff I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk about the Airbnb's ramp up for their anti-party. As you guys know, 4th of July, Memorial Day, all that, the summer holidays are coming, and Airbnb is trying to do a lot to prevent parties in their short-term rentals. I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to talk about how OTAs are shaping the travel behavior of individuals. We kind of touched on that during the last STR News, but I want to dive deep into that. I'm also going to talk about, again, the new summer release from Airbnb, their Airbnb Services. You know, now that it's been out for a little bit, I had some time to digest and dive deep into it. There's a few things about it that I don't like. I'm actually going to opt out of that, but I'm going to get into that. So if you are a short-term rental operator, you want to listen to that, because you may or may not want to be part of their services. And I'm going to give you what I think the cons are and what the pros are, you know, and then you decide whether or not you want to do that. I'm also going to give you a 5-day itinerary to Bogotá, Colombia. If you're not aware, Bogotá, Colombia is becoming one of the hot spots for Colombia in general. So if you're planning to go to Bogotá, I'm going to give you a nice 5-day itinerary that you can use when you go there. You can obviously modify it for a little longer, a little shorter, but I'm going to talk about that as well. So before I get into that though, because I always forget to give you some of the special fares, and let me give you this quick deal, right? So Star Alliance, if Star Alliance includes TAP Air, United Airlines, Singapore Air, and British Airways. The Star Airlines business class has a sail to Europe. This in the last 2 months or so, they really have been discounting the business class tickets to Europe. Right now, it's at $2,135. I've seen it as low as $1,800. As you guys know, I just came back from Europe, where I flew on TAP Air, their business class section. I give it a B minus. You know, I've stayed in better business class accommodations, but nonetheless, in terms of business class, I gave it a B minus. But by far is much better than flying either premium, because a lot of times they'll sell you premium seats for the price that you can get business class seats. And then obviously economy, you know, flying from here to Europe is not easy. It's a long flight. So if you can get these cheap business class tickets, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of advantages and some perks that will make your travel much easier, much more comfortable. So when you get there, you're fresh, you can rock and roll, and you can take advantage of your time there, especially if you're only going for 5 days or less. I mean, I say this all the time. If you're going to Europe, at a minimum, you want to go to Europe for 2 weeks. It's just less, a week or less. It's not enough time to really enjoy everything that Europe has to offer. And I'm specifically talking about if you're going to one destination. For example, if you're going to Spain, if you're going to Portugal, if you're going to Italy, if you're going to Switzerland, 1 week is not enough. We just spent 21 days, and because we were there for 21 days, we had the ability to visit multiple countries. We stayed in the Alps, so we stayed in the German, French, Austria, and Swiss Alps. Those are the areas in the mountain areas where we stayed. Beautiful. You can move around by train very, very easily, very inexpensive. So again, highly recommend that if you're going to travel to Europe, that you stay there for an extended period of time. But if you can't, then try to buy business class so that you can take advantage of some of these perks, and you're not beat up when you get there. So again, these are the airlines. I'm going to give you what the sale is. It's $21.35 for round trip tickets, and that is if you're flying out of New York City, LAX, San Francisco, Washington, Chicago, and Miami. And again, I'm going to repeat the airlines that this fare applies to: United, TAP, Singapore Air, and British Airways. Those are the ones that are giving this deal. $21.35 round trip business class ticket. Again, if you want more details on it, then just DM me the word business class or words business class, and then I will send you all the details on these flights and what when it expires. This particular one, it's not listed, but they usually are only good for 7 days. So, all right, let's get into some of the news. The first thing I want to talk about is what I started off the segment with, is Airbnb's anti-party AI patrol. If you're not aware, Airbnb, just like many other businesses today, are using AI to help them identify red flags, right? So one of the anti-party red flags they're looking for is in terms of, give me 1 quick second. I'm sorry. Thank you, sir. You got it all? Okay. Sorry about that. I'm having a big, we're working a lot of stuff in the back, and I got a bunch of my team members back there working, and they just dropped something off. But anyways, as I was saying, they're using AI to help control some of the issues that Airbnb has had in the past. And this AI tool, it's a learning tool, and basically what they're doing is trying to identify high-risk bookings, particularly for Memorial Day and July 4th. Now, if you're not aware, last year, they stopped over 51,000 potential parties from happening, or at least that's what they're saying. And they say they stopped parties, but in essence, what they did was they stopped 51 reservations from being booked. So, and I can tell you from firsthand, one of the reservations, we had one reservation, the person booked, and within, I believe within an hour or so, we were notified by Airbnb that they're going to cancel that reservation because it's high risk. Now, we do our own vetting. This is where I have a little bit of an issue with this. Now, it's a good thing that they're trying to do this, but what's the end goal, right? And how good is this AI tool? They're saying it's to protect hosts and communities, but my question is, how much control is too much control? And are these systems really reliable or not, right? So I'm gonna go back to that example. That group booked our property, and the system found it to be high risk. Now, we were already in the process of doing our background checks and our checks and balances with the guests. And to be honest, I didn't see any red flags. And I know that I could tell if a potential guest is going to be an issue much better than any AI tool can. So when that happened, it made me question how many other potential reservations I lost during the peak holiday seasons because of this AI tool. Now, I get it. Airbnb is running a business. They're trying to mitigate liability. And unfortunately, the great majority of properties on Airbnb are not currently being managed by professional hosts. Hence why Airbnb has started, if you follow this channel, you know what I'm about to talk about. They started with, last year, creating their own hosting service, meaning they're trying to get hosts like myself to be part of their co-hosting program. They started that last year because they quickly realized that a lot of the properties, the problem properties out there, are the ones that are not managed by companies like mine. So, let's take that into account and then fast forward to what's happening now with this AI tool. Again, it's AI. It's only as good as the data we put into it. And I don't think the algorithm they currently have is really that good. And I say that based on my experience with that reservation. Now, before I go on, I'm going to show you a quick video that we created. So Lorena, go ahead and put up that video.
Can you see my screen?
No.
No? Okay. Let me. Now?
Yeah, now I see it.
Okay.
There's no volume though. Can you see if there's a volume to that or no?
It was good?
No volume at all.
Okay. Give me 1 second because I could hear, but I don't know if it's because I'm.
All right, as she's working that out, working out the kinks on that video. That video is a quick promo video for our vacation rental. Again, if you guys understand who we are a short-term rental management company, but we're also a travel agency, and we've combined them both, right? So that video was a quick promo video that we're going to be putting out. If you follow me on Instagram, it's already on Instagram, and it's also on this YouTube channel. So subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Follow me on Instagram because I put a lot of information on Instagram so that you can stay abreast of a lot of the latest and greatest news. Plus, you get to see some of the great locations that I have visited, some of the locations that I highly recommend. And I'm going to talk, as I mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about Bogotá in a second. But let me get through let's see if this works now. There you go. Feel like I'm 10 feet tall. My turn, pass me the ball. Don't trip, no, I don't fall. That's
man is awesome. You guys gotta try this.
All right, that's our
Now?
new. Yeah, that was good. This time it came out. So it was a little stuttery, but again, if you guys want to see that video, go to my YouTube channel. See it in my YouTube channel in our shorts, and also on my Instagram. Came out. So it was a little stuttery, but
Fernando, someone in Instagram asked, "Where did you fly? Where was that video?" I mean, they think that is the same place. So yeah.
Okay, that video was in Interlaken in Switzerland. In Interlaken. If you guys never been to either Lucerne or Interlaken, highly recommend you go there. Again, if you want to see some of our trip to Interlaken and or Lucerne, go to my Instagram. We put a bunch of videos there. And you'll get to see. It is by far one of the most beautiful areas I've ever visited. It almost doesn't look real. And in fact, if you follow this channel, I actually did several STR news from Interlaken, from the Airbnb where we stayed at. And you can see the mountains, see the waters, the snow caps. Extremely beautiful. Highly recommend it. So to answer the question, that was Interlaken. It was beautiful. Now, going back, because I want to finish, because this is important for you as a traveler. And if you're traveling and or if you're a host, I recommend that you really pay attention to what's happening within the industry. This is why I do this STR news, so that you can stay on top of that. But here's what's happening. As I mentioned, last year, Airbnb blocked 51,000 reservations. Now, I don't think, and as I mentioned already, I don't think all those 51,000 cancellations were warranted. So here's what if you're booking a short-term rental during a holiday, because it's only happening during the holidays. Again, they're trying to prevent parties. If you're planning to travel, let's say Fort Lauderdale during for the 4th of July, or Miami, or any major city, and if Airbnb blocks you, then I recommend that you actually make a phone call to Airbnb and present your case. Because again, it's not a human that's doing these blocks; it's AI, and I don't think this AI system is that sophisticated. And like I mentioned, that's why I gave you my example with the reservation that was canceled. We had already started the background check. The background check passed. There was no red flags other than the fact that the people were from Florida, but they were from northern Florida. They were booking a property in South Florida. So anyways, that's just one example, and I'm pretty sure there's a lot of other examples similar to that. And if you're watching, have you been blocked or prevented for booking and reservations because Airbnb thinks you are a risk? If that's happened to you, comment below, please. Now, let's talk about Booking.com, because Booking.com, and it's funny because tomorrow, Booking.com is here in Miami. And one of the reasons why I am here in Miami is because there's a conference going on in Miami that Booking.com is putting on, and they invited a select group of short-term rental operators as well as people in the hotel industry. It's a private event, invitation only. I'm going to be one of the guest speakers tomorrow there. But it's interesting that this news just came out, and what's happening with Airbnb, and they're in a little bit of hot water in the European Union with the hotel group, because in Europe, the European Hotel Association launched a collective legal actions in the Netherlands over a price parity clause that apparently it's in Europe. I'm not familiar with it, and I didn't have time to research this before we went live, but apparently in Europe, there's a parity clause, meaning that what's on all hotels should be judged similarly on their platforms, on OTA platforms, right? At least this is what the little bit that I'm understanding from it. But the hotel group is suing Airbnb because their Booking.com is also preventing them from listing their properties lower, or the pricing on their properties less on their own booking platform. Meaning, if you put your property for $120 a night on your own booking website, then if you want to advertise on Booking.com, you have to list it for $129. It can't be more. That's a European thing, because that doesn't apply to us in the US, because I can tell you, if you book on Booking.com, any of my properties, you're paying more money. Why? Because Booking.com charges me 15% to advertise on there, versus Airbnb only charges me 3%, right? Verbal 3%. So if I'm going to continue to advertise on Booking, because a lot of Europeans and South Americans use Booking.com. But you need to understand that if you use Booking and you book my properties, you're definitely paying more money. So food for thought, if you're a traveler, always book direct if you can. And if you can't, price shop, because the prices are going to be different and different OTAs, unless you're booking a property in Europe or in the European Union, because there's apparently this price parity that these hotels are trying to fight, because they want to be, if you book directly with the hotel, they want to give you a discount, because they want you to book directly with them. And apparently there's an issue with that. Now, along those same lines, I talked about Airbnb Services, which was part of their summer release. If you're a short-term rental operator, this is the time to pay attention, right? If you're not familiar with Airbnb Services. Now, if you're a traveler, pay attention as well. I'm going to tell you why. I'll explain why this may affect you, because if you come to my properties, it will affect you. Anyway, Airbnb Service basically is Airbnb's expanding their experience that they had launched before, right? So with Airbnb Services, when you book a short-term rental, you're going to have the ability to, right on the platform, also book things like a chef, a hairstylist, a photographer, a dog walker, anything, a physical, a personal trainer, a massage therapist. You're going to have the ability to book all these services on Airbnb Service right on the platform when you book a short-term rental. Now, you don't have to book the short-term rental to book services, because they're separate entities. But the goal here, or the idea when this was launched, was that it can provide a better hotel-type guest experience to those that rent short-term rentals. At least that's the idea. Now, when it was first launched, and if you watched that STR News where I talked about this initial service, at the time, I had mixed feelings. I think it can be a good thing for some hosts, but after putting some thought into it, here's the problem. And here's why I say it can affect travelers as a whole, right? If you use that service entity, it is separate from the actual reservation. And it has nothing to do with the host. There's where the problem lies, right? There's a lot of short-term rental properties out there. And I can tell you that all of mine, this applies to all of mine, restrict who can enter the property. So for us, we don't allow guests unless they're registered. I can tell you in Colombia, all properties work the same. If you book a short-term rental, you have to register anybody that visits the property. If you book that rental, and let's say you decide to book a chef and you pay for that service, chances are that if you're doing that in Colombia or if you're doing it in my properties, they're not going to be allowed in. So that's problem number one. Problem number two with that as well is that if you are a host, you don't know who they're booking. You don't know, and it's an added liability. So let's say they book a massage therapist. That massage therapist comes to the house, starts doing their services, and something happens. Either a slip and fall, or worse yet, there's the person, either from the massage therapist or from the guest perspective, there's something happens, right? Something inappropriate happens, meaning, it could be a touch, it can be a sexual harassment thing. Something happens that's not legal, then you just open yourself up for some liability. Either way, I don't think it's a good idea if you as a host don't have control of it. This is why we have to decided as a company to opt out of Airbnb services. So if you book any of my properties, you're not going to have the ability to book this. Now, we already had that in place. We already have majority of these services with people that are vetted, that we control, that we know who's coming in, right? So if you're a host, you decide whether you think it's good for you, whether it's beneficial, and whether or not you want to opt out. But I'm going to tell you, it's not easy to opt out. Airbnb doesn't make it easy. What we had to do, we had to call, we had to make a request, we had to explain why we wanted to opt out, and it didn't happen quickly. So, in the future, we might readdress this, but right now there's just way too many unknowns. I don't want the liability. And again, these services, we had already provided them. We don't provide the magnitude of services that Airbnb provides. But what we're currently doing is telling the guests that we have opted out. If they want these type of services, then they need to notify us so we can vet who's coming in and out. All right. If there's any questions on that, list them below. If you have experienced any of these services, let me know how it worked out. Did it work out good? Did you like it? Let us know so we can learn because it's brand new. So most of us are not too familiar with what's going on. The next story, it's the second to the last story I want to talk about, is part of that summer release, and I talked about this before again, but part of that summer release was their price transparency, right? Meaning that when you look at a property on their platform, that total number should be the total number, right? There shouldn't be any surprises there in terms of fees. And I'm going to emphasize this in terms of fees, because we charge, it's not a charge. We collect a security deposit. It's a refundable security deposit, or you pay for a waiver in lieu of the security deposit, right? It's not a fee. So it doesn't violate the Airbnb transparency law. And, we get tons of guests that are, especially those that think they know everything, meaning they've been using Airbnb forever. They think they know all the rules, and they're familiar with the transparency clause. When we ask for the deposit, they tell us, "Oh, you can't do that. That's illegal." No, people, we can, because it's not a fee, and we can't collect that deposit off platform because we are an API connected platform, which means that everything that came out in the summer release, most of it doesn't apply to us. It's only for those hosts that are not using an API connected software, right? Anyway, so just be aware of that. Now, let's talk about, let me see. Let's talk about Bogotá, right? I am first of all, I love Colombia in general. It's one of my favorite countries. I love going to Europe, but Europe is too far, right? I could only go to Europe maybe a couple of times out of the year because when I go there, I need to spend an extended period of time. As I mentioned earlier in this broadcast, going for 5 days or less is very difficult because of travel, right? But Colombia is a different story. You get a lot of this, not the magnitude of churches, the grand magnitude of churches that you see in Europe, but you see very, on a smaller scale, very similar churches, with the exception of La Catedral de Sal, which is the largest church that's built underground in a salt mine, right? Beautiful. I've done videos on it. You can see it on Instagram. But let me give you why I think Bogota is, and it's become hot, man. We've been getting a lot of requests. A lot of people are traveling to Bogota. But let me give you a 5-day itinerary. Now, day one, when you get there, check into your Airbnb. Most flights, well, I'm going to talk about the East Coast, right? Most flights, if you're flying on Spirit, JetBlue, American, Avianca, LATAM, most flights are going to get you from the East Coast. You're going to get there before 4 p.m. In most cases, right? So you'll have time to check in. Then my recommendation on day one is to go to La Candelaria. It is in the historical section of the capital. They have beautiful, colorful neighborhoods. You get to visit La Plaza Bolivar and Botero's Museum. There's a lot to see there, and I highly recommend that you eat dinner at Andrés de C, which is probably one of the most famous Colombian fusion spots. Eat dinner there. Day two, it's all about Monserrate and museums, right? There in Monserrate is El Cerro de Monserrate is on the top of a mountain. There's a beautiful church there. You can shop there. There's a nice restaurant that you can eat there, especially in the evening time. But you get a beautiful panoramic view of the entire city of Bogotá. You get to see the magnitude of how big the city is. Now, it is 3,000 meters up in the air. So it's going to depend. The view is going to depend on the weather. If it's a cloudy day, if it's a rainy day, the visibility is going to be limited. But if it's a beautiful day, that's when I recommend you go there. There's two ways to get up there. You can get up there either by taking the stairs, climbing up there, which those that have some fitness, I recommend you do because there are shops and stuff as you climb up. And it's an experience to say that you actually did that, right? Or you can take the funicular up to Monserrate. Those are the two ways to get there. And you can either climb up and come down funicular, but I highly recommend you do that. Then after you visit Monserrate, then you can do that during the morning time. And in the afternoon, go visit the museums in El Centro de Bogotá, especially the Gold Museum. And then they have the history of their money. And you can see how the currency in Colombia was made, the different designs. It's pretty cool. And there's a lot of local restaurants, very, very inexpensive that I recommend you have lunch at or dinner if you want to do that. And then visit probably the best bar type franchise that they have there, which is the Bogotá Beer Company. It's a franchise. You'll find them everywhere. But go there, have a beer, eat some wings. It's really a good time. Now, day three, and I touched on this already, is a trip to Sicapira and visit the Salt Cathedral there. It's going to take you about, if you drive, it's going to take you about an hour, maybe an hour and a half to drive there. But I don't recommend you drive. There's an actual train that you can take from Bogotá to Sicapira. I recommend you take the train. It's an old style caboose style train. Recommend you do that. You'll see people dress up, they sing. You'll get some entertainment there. You also get to see the countryside if you take that train. It'll drop you off in downtown. You can walk down. You can go to the plaza and walk up to the salt miners. It's a beautiful, beautiful town. Highly recommend you do that. Spend the day there and then take the train back. Much better than driving. Driving in Bogotá is like driving in New York City, in Manhattan. Just to give you a point of reference, that's how it is there. But it's a historical town square there. It's really nice. And again, come back in the evening time. Now, day 4 you can use it for markets and culture and food. So I recommend that in Usaquén, there's great breakfast. There's the Usaquén market, and especially if you go there on the weekend, because on Sunday it's a big market. You can buy all sorts of things, very inexpensive. You can eat a lot of stuff there. Very nice. I would visit La Hacienda Santa Brava Mall. Again, it's a nice mall. There's several really nice malls. Most people visit the one in La Zona T and El Andino, but I don't recommend you shop in Andino because you're paying really retail prices. I mean, a lot of stuff there, even if the dollar is good, you're going to pay more if you shop there. So go to Santa Barbara Mall. You're going to shop and spend a lot less than if you go to Andino, where a lot of people go. A lot of people hang out in La Zona T. It's nice. I recommend La Zona T as well. But if you go to Bogotá, the idea to go to Bogotá is to really feel the culture, right? La Zona T, you're going to find a bunch of people like you, right? And you don't want to do that. Then the last day on day 5, I would there's a bicycle. Again, I have this thing about bikes, right? If you watch the show, you know I do. You can take a bike tour. It's called the Graffiti Bike Tour. And you get to ride the bike all through a lot of the older sections of Bogotá. They'll talk about the history of Bogotá. You'll get to see they call it the graffiti tour because in Chapinero, that area there's a lot of graffiti. But it's a good area. It's a nice area to visit. I really like it. There's a restaurant there called Leo Cocina y Cava. It's a Michelin star restaurant there. Highly recommend you eat dinner there. Really nice. And then if you want to do some nightlife or whatever, then I recommend you go to La Zona T. You have some of the best clubs in Zona T. You also have them in Zona G or Zone G. You have some really nice restaurants there and some bars and nightclubs, but the majority of them are going to be in Zona T. Highly recommend you do that. Relax and then fly out the next morning. There's your itinerary. Hope this information was useful. If it was, hit that like button. Subscribe if you haven't subscribed. Don't forget to buy my ebook. It's if you're a short-term rental operator or you're thinking about getting into the short-term rental game, I highly recommend that you buy that ebook. It's really going to get you to start your journey into the short-term rental on the right foot. And again, if you buy that book, you're going to have access to us. So highly recommend you do that. Anyway, my beautiful people, love you guys. Thank you for tuning in. Comment, say something, say hi, but write a comment in on this stream. Love you guys. See you in the next one.
Imagine a vacation where every detail is tailored just for you. That's the Dream Vacations and Rentals by PMI Difference. We're not just another rental company. We're your personal vacation curators focused on you, our guest. From hand-picked properties to curated local experiences, we craft personalized journeys. Our marketing reaches you with the perfect options, matching your unique travel style. With Dream Vacations and Rentals by PMI, your perfect getaway is just a click away. Visit our website to book your dream vacation today and experience the PMI difference.